Again, a good evening. Welcome to this special meeting of the Bethel Board of Finance. It is Thursday, May 14th, and I'd like to call us to order. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America
and to
the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ella.
Thanks for that.
Up.
Okay. Look, we all know that families are busy and they're focusing every day just on keeping their members safe and healthy. While the budget's important, it may not have been front of mind. So I'd like to start with a very brief recap of what's preceded tonight, and then kind of hopefully get everybody on the same page as to where we are. In January, the budget process for fiscal year 2021, that is the year that begins July 1st, 2020 and ends June 30th, 2021, pretty much started as normal with department meetings. The town of Bethel operates through 37 departments, and heads of these departments present their proposals to Matt and to Bob. These rolled into February when the department heads presented their proposals to joint sessions of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. After the joint sessions in late February and early March, the Board of Selectmen deliberated and presented its proposal to the Board of Finance. In turn, the Board of Finance deliberated and developed its proposal. Then came mid-March and comes COVID-19, everything changes. On March 13th, President Trump declares a national health emergency for the coronavirus. On March 21st, in response both to President Trump's declaration of a national emergency and to the most severe health crisis in 100 years, Governor Lamont issued a number of executive orders limiting the size of public gatherings, including his Executive Order 7I, which suspended in-person budget processes, including our annual town meeting and referendum. On April 7th, pursuant to Executive Order 7I, the Board of Selectmen authorized the Board of Finance to determine Bethel's budget for fiscal year 21. And the Board of Selectmen instructed us to do so by May 15th. This date's not an arbitrary date. Rather, it's determined by the combined operation of the governor's executive order and our town charter. On April 14th, the Board of Finance further adjusted our budget proposal. This revised proposal was the one we discussed at Tuesday's public hearing. Now it's time to decide. To that end, I will make a motion for purposes of discussion, and after discussion, this board will vote. So, motion. Make a motion that the proposed budget in a total amount of $79,765,010. Kathy, that's 79,765,010. Be adopted as the Bethel budget for the fiscal year 2021. That total is comprised of the Board of Ed number of $47,969,807 and a town, that's 47969,807, and a town operating budget of $31,795,203. So Kathy, town side 31,795,203. With,
I'll second. Oh, I'll second. It's all,
I'm sorry. That is that is comprised of the three components of town operating, 26,414,490, Board of Ed maintenance, $445,000 and debt service of $4,935,713.
Okay, I don't know if you heard Kathy, I had seconded it. Wendy?
So we have a, Kathy, did you get that? Yeah, okay. So we have a motion, we have it seconded, and discussion. I'm just going to call folks and ask them to make their comments. I'll start with Robert Palmer. Robert?
Thank you, Bob. On Tuesday night, close to 300 members of the Bethel community joined a virtual public meeting. We heard thoughts from 30 of them. In addition to those 230, we had close to 300 members of the community write letters. I realize that this input does not supplant our desire and our right to vote, and that is regrettable. But despite this regret, the board was assigned a task to act in a way that we feel reflects the will of the town's electorate. From the written input and from the spoken input, it is clear that there are two sides. One clearly for the budget that is largely impacted by the need to keep our schools funded at a reasonable level, and another side that feels that the net funding should be reduced so that there is no increase to the mill rate. This Board of Finance has worked through several iterations of the 2021 budget. The initial request was for $81.8 million, a 4.91% increase in spending. This was trimmed by the Board of Selectmen to $81.1 million, or 3.96%. Your Board of Finance laboriously went line by line over their request of over 30 departments and further trimmed the budget to $80.7 million, or a 3.49% spending level. In a rare 6-to-1 vote by the board, it was approved and put forth to the town for the referendum. And then the effect of the pandemic occurred. We decided that it was tone deaf to put the budget forward with a $2.7 million increase. To get to a zero level increase, we needed to get to a $1.1 million level. We had several paths. The Democratic members of the board presented painful cuts of just under $1 million that further impacted road construction, pension funding, town programs, and schools. This brought us to the 2.27, the current proposal. Brian Terzian, to his credit, suggested that another 1.45 thousand in cuts, 100,000 to come from the school budget, on top of the 624,000 that was already taken. This plan would not have gotten us to zero. Nick Ellis also offered up a plan that took 380,000 additional dollars from the schools, 84,000 from the police, 100,000 from highway, 200,000 from the cash account that's used to purchase items such as fire trucks, police equipment, town maintenance departments equipment. It would have gotten us to zero, but the majority of the board did not feel that it would have been left enough to support the schools, the health, and the safety of the community. And Cynthia McCorkindale suggested that union employees either take a furlough or forgo pay increases that were negotiated in the last round of their multi-year contract. It was felt by the majority that unilaterally adjusting the terms of union contracts was not a course the Board of Finance was in a position to take. So this leaves us looking at a $1.77 million increase, or 2.27%. This amounts to an increase in the mill rate by 0.98%. Takes us to a mill rate of 33.41. There's not a member of this board that is happy with this increase, but it is evident by all the people that submitted letters, who spoke out at the meeting, that this budget is a compromise that painfully increases taxes, but protects one of the most prized things about our town, our outstanding schools. This is not a time to be partisan. Taxes are not red or blue. They're a requirement of good and sound town governance. I am in favor of the compromise put forth, and I am in favor of the budget at the current proposed level. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Brian, would you go next, please?
Yeah, I just want to start with a couple points after listening to Robert. Robert says he doesn't want to be partisan, yet he gives the Democratic members the credit for making $1 million worth of cuts, whatever the number was. Robert, we weren't even given an opportunity to present. It started with motions that have been discussed as a group in the past. So I do take offense at your comments that you just made, especially in terms of being nonpartisan, because what you did show was partisanship right there. I offered more than $100,000 cut. As a matter of fact, I found almost $200,000 in savings this year that was agreed would be savings, but we decided we were going to use it for something else this year. I feel that we still can obtain a 0% mill increase, still fund our schools in our town adequately, and do the responsible thing by not raising taxes. We are ignoring the fact that almost right now, 19% of Bethel is unemployed and unemployment is going up. We still don't know the full effects of COVID and how long and how deep this recession is going to go. But my gut, and that's an educated gut by reading and listening to a lot of economic experts, we're just at the tip of it now, and it's going to get much deeper and much more hard on people. I think it's irresponsible to raise taxes right now. I understand how important it is to fund things, but at the end of the day, people are going to suffer. And I understand that we say the average taxpayer, it's $70. Well, okay, that's $70 less than they have a year. And I don't know if, that holds true for all households. So again, I still think we can get there. You guys know where I stand. I'm going to vote no on any mill increase.
Thank you,
Thank
Brian.
you.
Thank you. Wendy, mind going next, please?
Thank you for the opportunity. Are these unprecedented times? Absolutely. Would I prefer a referendum? Of course I would. Am I hoping that the executive order that is presently in place that requires the Board of Finance to establish the budget is just a temporary one-time thing? Yes, of course, I hope so. Too many have sacrificed so much to give us that right to vote, and we need to vote. However, these are the parameters that have been given to us as the Board of Finance, and the responsibility now falls on us. Am I concerned about the impact that my decision will have on the Bethel community? Of course I am. That being said, I feel more of a responsibility to the town of Bethel as a whole, and believe that the proposed budget has the least impact while continuing to provide essential services, support for our schools, commitments to contracts, and funds the health, safety, and welfare of the community. Many times I've maintained that the community provides for those that are in need of assistance. We fund tax relief, social and community programs, and a myriad of other services that make up the needs of the community as a whole. If I did not believe that there were safeguards in place in the event that our economy doesn't turn as quickly as hoped, I would be hesitant. But I have faith in our town leaders and faith in the community that we will continue to do the right thing for our residents. And while I am a registered Democrat, I think my 60+ years of living here in Bethel has made me a Bethelite first, and I am in support of the proposed budget. Wish it could be more, wish we could vote, but these are the things that we have in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Cynthia, would you comment or any discussion?
Yeah, first, okay. First of all, I just want to clarify something that Robert said. I never proposed that the Board of Finance would have some sort of power to do anything about furloughs. I simply put forth a number that was equivalent to 1 day furlough. That's the motion I made. I qualified it by saying it was 1 day of a furlough, and qualified it by saying perhaps union negotiations could be reopened. That was what I said. The second thing is that I think it's a little bit it's not actually accurate to take the way that we took public input this time. It wasn't really accurate. There are many reasons for that, and we did hear from a lot of people. And I'm not minimizing anyone's opinion. I'm just saying I think that is not the most accurate barometer. I personally feel that if this went to a referendum, that it would fail, and that's because of the times. And I want to make one more point that there was a post on Facebook, and I just want people to understand that I think it's great that the people who are working and the school employees that are working, but there was a post that was a congratulatory post on the school Facebook page that said, yay, we served 56,000 meals since March 27th. And in my mind, because I believe that we need to restrain spending, I said, is that a good thing? Because in 6 months, guess what? You're going to have 75% of your students eligible for the subsidized meal plan. And we're not paying any attention to that. But with that said, what I would like to do right now, which I will also follow up in an email, which I'm sending to Bob Manfreda and copying Dion, I'm going to read a statement into the record, and I would like it to be included with tonight's meeting minutes. I would like to state on the record that I believe that tonight's vote on settling the mill rate and annual budget is illegal. There is a complaint being processed by the U.S. Department of Justice against Governor Lamont, the Bethel Board of Selectmen, and the Bethel Department of Health, which I filed on May 8th, 2020. It is with this in mind that I would formally request postponement of the vote until the Department of Justice makes a determination on the complaint as to the legality of the vote. If there is no consensus to postpone, this puts me in the untenable position of being asked to participate in what I consider to be an illegal act, and in all good conscience, I cannot join in this illegality. I will therefore abstain from voting if this meeting results in a vote. If this were a legal meeting, my vote would be no to any tax increase in the 2021 annual budget. I'd like to ask the other members to join me in refusing to vote and have this marked in the record. I'm sure that's not going to happen. I took an oath to uphold the Constitution and the rule of law. However, any law that is unconstitutional is illegal. In conclusion, I am not willing to violate my oath or my promises to the public and act in a legal manner by participating in an illegal vote. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you. Delene, would you mind going next?
Yes, hi. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I think it stinks that we can't vote. I think you play the hand you're dealt, and that's what the Board of Finance is trying to do. I think that the decision that was made to not allow referendum in any community in Connecticut was done out of a concern for safety. So I understand the decision. There's just a lot we don't know about COVID-19. We're seeing new symptoms in children now that we never thought that COVID affected children. So there's just a lot we don't know. So I appreciate the standard of safety, and I will participate in this vote. I just want to start out by thanking everyone who submitted an email or spoke at the public hearing. I assure you, I read every single email and I took copious notes at the public hearing. we got a ton of input. If you look at it all, we got 187 emails that were sent to the last regular meeting. I think some people might have thought that was a public hearing and that's why we got so many, but there were a lot of voices in that meeting. We got 333 emails for the public hearing, and then 33 people spoke at the public hearing. So I just want to just quickly recap the results on that for anybody who didn't read every email individually. It was a lot to process, and I know everybody's busy doing a lot of things and taking care of themselves. So just as a recap, you know, after Bob mentioned, we in March had 6-1 voted to send a 3.495 spending increase to the public hearing. We got a lot of email related to that. Out of the 187 emails, 122 people supported that almost 3.5% increase. 65 did not. So it was a 2-to-1 ratio of support. A lot happened after that. The world changed dramatically, things that none of us could have ever predicted. We've all been impacted differently, right? But it's a tough time for everyone, no matter how you've been impacted. I know that, and I feel that personally. So as a Board of Finance member, I felt it was really important to really carefully take a look at whatever we could do to make sure that the budget that we put forward really reflected what the people of Bethel wanted. And I think we all agreed, as Robert said, and Brian said, that the 3.5 would be too much. So we went to work on trying to reduce that. For my Republican colleagues and Cynthia, the only solution was a 0% mill rate increase. And I get that, right? It would be nice for all of us not to pay any additional taxes for the rest of our lives. We can all agree on that. But what that doesn't do is support our town and the things that the town needs. That would require us taking an additional $650,000 out of a budget that's already been cut by more than $2 million. So back to the data. So we poured over the budget again, and we took an additional $950,000 out. It resulted in a 2.27% spending increase, which is a 1% tax increase. We didn't get to zero, and then we asked for more input from you. That input showed up in the form of, again, 333 emails. Of the 333 emails, 180 of them were yes emails, support emails, and 117 were no. That is 1.5 times more people who supported the 1% tax increase than 0% tax increase. In that data set, there were also 11 other emails where people protested the no vote or asked questions or made suggestions. So they didn't get counted as a yes or no. There were also a number of duplicates. There were 11 duplicates on the yes side and 10 duplicates on the no side. The duplicates are not reflected in the tally of 118 to 117 because those voices had already been counted. So the data tell me that there's support for both sides. But if this was a vote, which I know it is not, and we all wish there was, the yeses would take it by a margin of 1.5 with regard to the emails that were sent to the public hearing. Then the public hearing comments were also in favor of the 1% increase. Of the 33 public comments, 18 were yes, 6 were no, and 6 had questions or were protesting the inability to vote, and 3 people spoke twice, and at that point I only counted them once because they didn't change their opinion. So again, there was more support for yes than no. The data clearly suggests that those who have weighed in, which is a substantial number of people, say that they think it's more reasonable to go with a 1% budget than a 0% budget. That being said, this is a compromise budget, right? Not everybody got what they wanted or what they needed. The schools didn't get everything they needed. There was $625,000 already taken out of their budget. They've got 250 more kids than they had 4 years ago and no more staff. So with the budget, with the 1% tax increase, they get a few more teachers, And God bless them, they'll make do like they always do, and they'll teach our kids in a high quality and compassionate way. But they didn't get everything that they wanted or needed. And let me tell you, God bless them, because homeschooling with 3 is interesting enough for me. I can't imagine having 27 in a classroom. The police didn't get everything they wanted, but they did, no, I'm sorry, we got an extra police officer to protect us, to patrol for us, right? They are now going to have a couple of operating cars that they need, right? To protect us. Firefighters, same thing. They actually are, this budget enables them to get new radios that allow them to more easily call for emergency help, which could save their lives while they're protecting us, right? The health department gets a little extra help, because now not only are they doing, you know, their regular job, which was a lot to begin with, but now they're responsible for the COVID recovery plan, right? Getting us back to school, getting us back to work. We all want that. Road construction went from $900,000 to $500,000. If we cut that anymore, can you imagine the Facebook posts? Really? Should we take money from the senior center or social services, parks and rec? I can't imagine that. There's seniors who are suffering right now. They're isolated. They can't see their kids, their grandkids. You know, they probably are just hoping soon that they can go back and have a community lunch with their friends at the senior center. So you get the gist from me. I think taking another $650,000 out of this budget to get to 0 would have been gutting the budget. And it would have been letting a lot of people down, frankly. As one of the speakers at the public hearing said, we've done that before. We've gutted the budget before, and it takes a long time to come back from that. So this budget is a 1% tax increase instead of a 0% tax increase. And personally, I think that's a good compromise. What I would also like to say is that I think there's a lot of uncertainty right now. This is a really tough time. And while I'm optimistic that, you know, we'll bounce back from this, you know, our country, our town, our neighbors, we will bounce back from this, but there will be people who will have a hard time paying their bills. You know, mortgages and taxes are probably the biggest monthly expense for most families. Regardless of this year's small increase, it's still probably their biggest expense each month. And some people will have a hard time paying that. I really pray that the safety nets that have been put in place, like the CARES Act from the federal government and the extended unemployment packages, you know, any additional aid packages that come out, and the executive orders to defer mortgages and taxes, perhaps the elderly tax abatement program that we have, will help people get through this tough time. And I encourage you, if you're, you know, if you feel like you're getting into a tough time, or if you feel like you could potentially be there, reach out. There's resources to help you, right? Call, you know, social services and town hall, call the tax collector, call your bank, you know, and if all else fails, and I mean this honestly, please call me and I'll try to connect you with someone who can help you figure out what might be helpful. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Dee. Nick?
Thank you, Bob. I've been listening to a bunch of stuff for the last half hour. I'd like to maybe have a moment of silence for Charlie Steck that passed away. He was the first selectman of this town and he loved this town. I know probably a lot of people don't know who he is, but he was a guy that lived in Bethel his whole life and ran businesses. So if we can have a moment of silence for Charlie Steck, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Nick, for that.
I didn't have any big written statement. This town has really changed. And, you know, I really care about our neighbors here. And it's the ones that don't want to be called names, that don't want to put their hand up. I give Cynthia a lot of credit. She cares about things and she's not afraid of being called names. The social media has just gotten so far out of hand. But going back to this budget, I would prefer to be on the side of caution and do with less, make our departments do with less. And if they can't do with less, we'll find people that can do with less, because that's what all these families in Bethel are doing. There's 36 million people in this country that have lost their jobs, and we're bickering about how much more everybody needs. Again, I got criticized on the internet about if I had for my family what we had last year, we would all be happy. But we're fighting over 600,000 and we're raising people's taxes. We're asking them to go ask the government for help. How about we just don't raise the taxes and then we don't have to ask people for help? I supported this budget going to the public hearing before the wheels fell off, and I call this virus the wheels fell off. For me to support a 6.5%, I'm sorry, a 3.5% increase, I wanted the people to voice their opinion because we're only 7 people. And then unfortunately, we can't do that. We can have 4 or 5 hours of 500 families pick up food at a church in Bethel. Okay, so when you say there's no need, there's a big need. I asked Bob this afternoon if he felt from April 20th when we last met and got a number, if it was better or worse. And he told me he thought things were better. We've got people waiting 2 hours in advance to get 6 bags of food in our own town. This town is not doing well. And now we're going to put another burden of 2% on top of them. So I think this is wrong, and I'm going to vote no if this does come to a vote tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nick.
Bob, could I say one additional thing? Would that be okay?
Sure.
If we go back around, yeah.
I'm going to agree with Nick. And I think, Nick, I agree with you. The social media is out of control and it does not reflect well on Bethel. And I would like to at least suggest that before anyone writes anything on social media, make sure it's something you would say to that person's face.
Exactly. Call them first.
Call them first.
You know, my daughter turned 16 years old and I'm excited, and her license got delayed for this virus. I brought her up to our education park, and I did the long parking lot by the tennis court. Everybody knows what parking lot I'm talking. She was taking her time backing in, and there was this car that drove through that parking lot probably 30 miles an hour, okay, and was aggravated that I slowed him down a little bit. If I had a rock in my hand, I would have smashed the window, but I punched it, okay, because this is not the town I grew up with. My wife just said, you go to Bethel Food, and we used to grab the cart from the old lady. No, they're fighting and blowing horns to get the closest parking spot. What happened to Bethel? Well, we're going to just keep raising the taxes and let the New Yorkers keep changing this town. The Charlie Stecks people is what this town was about, and we're allowing it to change. And I understand it's always going to change, but it's not right.
Can I say one more thing too, Bob, quickly? Well, 2 things. One is I appreciate all the people who weighed in on their opinions, but I would just like to say, did we not learn anything from the turf field? Because that was when times were not like this. And it seemed that there were a lot of people, and there were, who supported it because they had t-shirts. So this is, to me, it's just similar. It's whoever gets the most galvanized group. One more thing, there is a way we can get to 0%. And it's by reducing the capital non-recurring account. And I'll tell you why I say this. Because there's a very good chance that in the very near future, we're going to have negative interest rates. Not just even 0%, it's going to be negative. And so if anyone has a problem with, locking in 20 years at a -%, I'm thinking that's a little bit of a trade-off if people think things are going to get better. So I'm not making a motion to cut it. I'm just putting it out there in case someone else wants to, because that is a solution.
Okay, thank you. I think it's my turn. I'll be brief. There've been many good comments. No need to repeat them. I guess first, I want to thank the residents of Bethel. We are among the most passionate of voters, sharing freely our thoughts of what we believe is right and what we believe is wrong. In fact, nearly 400 passionate opinions were provided through the public hearing mailbox, submissions, and public hearing comment. Each submission was considered, so thank you. Second, I want to thank my Board of Finance colleagues. Throughout this very challenging circumstance, a once-in-a-lifetime circumstance, not more.
Mhm.
You were consummate professionals, never delegitimizing viewpoints contrary to your own, while never losing the passion that you had for your viewpoint. Thank you. Finally, I believe this proposal is fair and a solid middle ground between two otherwise irreconcilable positions. For every opinion that was advocated for a zero increase in tax, there were opposing opinions that advocated for a 3.5% increase. We are the Bethel Board of Finance. We are charged with representing the interests of the entire town, all who live in this community that we love, that Charlie Steck loved. So in doing so, I will be voting yes on this proposal. Any more comment? Any more discussion?
Bob, I just have a question. Today it was released that the state, I believe, has close to $90 million in aid that they are going to be distributing to the municipal school systems. I'm curious whether we have some idea on how much that aid is going to be for Bethel. I know a lot of it is tied into, you know, what your educational costs sharing is and, you know, federal reimbursement. So does anyone have that answer on what we expect to get from the state?
I see Terry. I don't know, or
I can
Carver.
answer, Bob.
Yeah, go, please, I'm sorry.
Brian, the way it's my understanding that the way it's going to be distributed is through our Title I funds and Title I grant. We don't yet have an exact amount of what that's going to be. And it's, I believe, and Terry can correct me if I'm wrong, there's specific purposes, particularly related to mitigating the educational impact. I know it's going to be a percentage of what we get in Title I, which is a little over $200,000, correct, Terry?
That's correct. We get a little over 200 in our Title I.
But it's a percentage of that money.
Some percentage of that, yes.
They have said we are going to receive it, but they have not said exact amounts and when.
And it will require that we attest to a number of things and how we're going to use it. And but they have not sent us any final information on it.
No.
Okay, thank you.
No more discussion? I see, okay. All right, no more discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please signify.
Can you go around and just get everybody to vote instead of just everybody yelling?
You mean like raise hands?
Go around, yeah.
Just go around, just call on them and have everybody vote like we did last time.
Sure,
That'll be easier for Kathy too.
okay. I'm just gonna then go through the loop the same way. Robert,
Yes.
Brian,
No.
Wendy,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Abstain.
Celine,
Yes,
Nick,
I vote no to raise taxes.
and I vote yes for this very reasonable middle ground. Motion passes. The next motion will have to be, I believe, Bob, for the mill rate, or is that just an automatic?
No, I would say this is very similar to when we have a referendum and we meet a week or 10 days afterwards and vote on the new mill rate. So I would suggest that a motion be made to create the new mill rate at this point.
Okay, I will make a motion that and I'm sorry, before I make the motion, are we breaking out real property and auto? Or is this just real property?
Yeah, we can do like we did in the past, the last 4 years. The real property would be the number we're looking at right now at 3374, and the autos would be 32.
Okay. I will make a motion that we approve for the fiscal year 2021 a real property mill rate of 33.74% and a mill rate for auto of 32.
a second.
Also,
Discussion.
What rate are we figuring collection of taxes at to get to that mill rate?
98.7 like we always do at this point.
We're at 98.7.
98.7, yes.
And
And in fact, right now, as of the end of May, we're at 98.23 with June to come in. There are taxes that are deferred, but I'm sure we're going to get to that number, if not closer to 99 for this year. Next year is going to be a different story. There's no question about it.
and how does the Duracell decision, how is that going to weigh in to next year's budget? Do you
Well,
feel
like I said,
confident that?
Yeah, like I said the other night, Marty and the attorney and the assessor were going to meet and see if we had any grounds for an appeal. But at this point, I wouldn't consider that in any reduction of revenue because that would only increase the mill rate at this point. If we need to cut expenses during the course of the year, between Terry and I, we've talked about this like we've done in the past when we had the ECS problem or back in 9 and 10 prior to me coming to the town. We worked things out. We cut back if we had to cut back. So, I hear it's about 220,000 right now. I think we can support that. And, either through cutting expenses or, with the collection of taxes. But we'll see. We'll see after the first quarter is going to tell some stories.
I have a question for Bob. So would there be any negative on waiting a little bit to set the mill rate? Because it just seems so unknown, and to bank on or even predict a 99% collection rate seems to be
Well,
not
we
realistic.
do the 98.7 and we won't know the collection rate until July.
Well, why
Yeah,
wouldn't
I
we
don't know.
wait to set the mill rate?
Well, I think it's set in the charter that we have to do it after
I don't think
a
so.
number of days after the
Well, what are
referendum.
those number of days?
Well, look, Cynthia, do you want to make a motion?
Yes,
You can make a
I
motion.
would like to make a motion that we table setting the mill rate until we find out in the charter, we know that it's within a certain amount of days, that we find out what those number of days are and wait that long.
All right. Does anyone second that?
I'll second it for discussion because I'd like to discuss the mill rate a little bit more. I have some more questions.
We're in the middle of a motion.
Go ahead, Matt.
I
Charter
just-
requires mill rate to be set no more than 15 days after
There
budget is
you
wrapped.
go. Perfect. I'm going to amend my motion to say 15 days from now.
I do wonder about the impact that will have on getting the tax bills out, because it does take the tax collector and the assessor's office a couple of weeks to coordinate once they have a mill rate. I don't know if Ann Scacco's on here.
I
Can
don't
always be
think he is.
adjusted. Can always be adjusted.
But that, I don't know if that ties in with the deferral program.
That was Ann's point last time.
So I don't know if that allows for them to have enough time.
Can
I
I
don't-
ask Bob another question?
Sure. Yep, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes, Brian, please.
Oh, okay. Bob, if we held the mill rate at the current level, because, most years we end up with, probably 800,000 or whatever it comes out to be. And let's say at the end of the year, we fell short by 100,000, 150,000. How come we just couldn't take from the fund balance at that point to cover any shortages that we came up with if we kept, we're talking about 600,000 really. And, if we're expecting our tax rate to come in above the number we put as a safe number, what would the harm be in doing that?
I don't think you can, accounting wise, you can do that calculation. I think what you have to do is set the mill rate at this point. If we have a surplus at the end of the year, we can designate a portion of that for capital improvements. But you got to remember, we've got a bond coming up, a big bond for the renovations of the schools. And the rating agencies really don't look too kindly on using the fund balance to take care of your shortfalls in your budget. I mean, to leave the mill rate the same as it is right now is really adjusting the expenses down 650,000. It's the same effect, so I wouldn't advocate that at this point.
So here's my question. Why would it be in the charter that we can wait 15 days? In fact, where there's federal and state money coming, we would know more in 2 weeks' time.
I don't think it's a matter of, federal and state money when they put it into the charter. I think it was.
No,
to
I know
give the
that.
Board of
No, I'm
Finance
sorry.
some time to.
Not what I mean.
And also, before I came here, I mean, they didn't calculate the mill rate until after the referendum was completed and approved. And then they sat down and figured out what the mill rate was going to be. There was never any discussions during the town meeting or even the public hearing what the mill rate was going to be for the following year. It's a budget for expenditures, not on revenue. So they might have given you some idea what was going on, but I mean, we have it down pretty precise at this point where, all right, if it's these expenses and we're calculating this revenue, this is going to be your mill rate. So we can do it right away.
Of course we can do it right away.
They didn't do it.
I'm sorry. First of all, I miscommunicated. I never said that you combine those two things about waiting. Why isn't it in the charter and then federal and state? I know it's not in the charter because we're supposed to wait for federal and state revenue. I'm saying we'll know more in 2 weeks. It's in the charter. Why not take advantage of that? I can tell you, and I don't have a magic 8 ball. We're not getting 99% collection rate. I'm just going to tell you right now as, a psychic. So I think that it might be a wise idea to wait 2 weeks. There's no harm, no foul. Why not?
All right.
Well,
I made my motion, so.
We got a motion. It's been seconded. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye,
And this is Cynthia's?
Yes.
to wait 15 days.
I vote aye, yes.
I'll vote aye, that's fine.
Okay. All those against, please signify by saying no.
No.
Okay, motion fails. Okay, so do we need to make a motion, Bob, about well, we have to vote now, or was that an amended motion? I lost track.
That was amended. We need to vote.
Yep, okay. So back to the original motion of accepting for the fiscal year 2021 budget, a real property mill rate of 33.74. All those in favor, please signify by
3374, I'm sorry, 3374.
33.74.
Okay, sorry.
Can you do the vote one at a time like you did last time, just to make it easy?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm just going to look at the screen here. Brian,
I'm going to go vote no and go on record by saying I think we have savings this year we could capture to buy down the mill rate for next year. So I'm a no.
Nick,
I'm a no also.
Robert,
Yes.
Cynthia,
I'm going to abstain in keeping with my prior vote or non-vote.
Yes.
Delene,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Motion carries. Now, do we do the auto or was that, oh, we did the auto, it was in there, right?
I think you put it together.
Yes.
Okay. That is it as far as our agenda and our agenda items. So entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes? No. Motion passes. Again, thank you all. Stay safe.